Technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master. Those words from Christian Luz Langa feel especially relevant today as artificial intelligence becomes more capable, more accessible, and more integrated into our everyday clinical routines. But the question remains, who should be in charge? The algorithm or the clinician? Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode looks at a topic that sits at the center of our core values: excellence, leadership, ethics, and professionalism, together with the fast-changing field of technology. We're taking a closer look at the promises and the challenges of artificial intelligence in dentistry. And more importantly, we're asking, who should make the final decision? The algorithm or the clinician? Before we continue, we would like to take a moment to thank one of our value partners whose support helps make the Pillars Pod possible. Please take a moment to hear from our sponsor.
Like people, businesses have their journey, their path, sometimes straight, but more often evolving, growing, and adapting to a changing world, creating the need for knowledge in areas like accounting, consulting, tax, technology, areas critical to your continued growth and success. All part of the journey, all part of what we do together with you. Because your success is the destination. MNP, wherever business takes you.
Welcome to the Pillars Pod, everyone, where we explore the values that elevate dental professionals. Whether you're an ACD fellow or a recent grad navigating your first year out, or a seasoned practitioner committed to lifelong learning, this is your space to reflect, recharge, and rethink the future of our profession. I'm Dr. Sonia Slawuta, joined by my co-host, Dr. Saira Paredes. And today we are thrilled to welcome someone who has been at the forefront of clinical excellence, ethics, and innovation, Dr. Peter Fritz. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Dr. Fritz is a periodontist, educator, researcher, and national leader in the integration of technology into clinical practice. His work has shaped how dentists think about evidence-based care, interdisciplinary collaboration, and now the role of AI in diagnostics and decision-making. Peter, we are so glad to have you as our guest and to have the opportunity to discuss this important and timely topic with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with something every dentist can relate to: the daily diagnostic puzzle. Radiographs, shadows, borderline lesions, and now AI is stepping into that space with a lot of confidence.
Okay, let's begin with our first question, the caries showdown. AI companies claim their systems can detect early caries with greater sensitivity than clinicians. From your perspective, is AI really catching things that we miss, or are we giving this clever algorithm just too much credit?
Both are true, and I think that's the honest answer. The technology genuinely works. Peer-reviewed studies put sensitivity for caries detection around 85% and specificity around 90%, and there are now about 29 FDA-cleared dental AI products. And AI has one advantage no human will ever match. It reads the 40th bite wing of the day exactly the way it read the first. It doesn't get tired at 4:30 on a Friday. So yes, it catches early interproximal lesions at the very margins of human perception. But here's the trap. Sensitivity isn't the same as clinical significance. AI detects demineralization. It does not decide whether that lesion needs a handpiece or fluoride varnish and a 6-month recall. Detection is a pixel question. Treatment is a patient question. And I'll say this from experience. I've had AI confidently flag normal anatomical variation as pathology. If I had trusted it blindly, that patient would have been treated for a disease she didn't have. So the real risk today isn't that AI sees too little. It's that we treat too much because it sees so well.
That's such an interesting point that you mentioned. And even when AI gets it right, it doesn't always see things the way we do, as you say.
So true. For instance, when AI flags a lesion you'd ignore or ignores one you'd treat, who breaks the tie? What principles guide that decision? And if we choose to override the judgment of AI, or worse yet, follow the judgment of AI over our reservations, are we at risk legally or with our college?
The clinician breaks the tie, full stop. The RCDSO has been clear that AI is a tool and professional accountability can't be delegated to software. And here's why that will never change. AI will never have to look a patient in the eye and say, I was wrong. You will. The principle that guides the tiebreak is correlation. AI sees the image. You see the person. If the AI flags something I would have ignored, that disagreement is information. It slows me down. I take a second look. Maybe I photograph it and document a watch. If the AI misses something I would treat, my judgment governs. Now, the legal question, and this is important, you are not at risk for overriding AI if you document your reasoning. But you are absolutely at risk for following AI against your own reservations because the algorithm told me to is not a defense in any courtroom or any college hearing. The standard of care is still what a reasonable clinician would do, not what a reasonable algorithm would output. The protection in both directions is the same. Document what the AI found, what you concluded, and why. Blind agreement and blind override are equally indefensible. Reasoned judgment is the shield.
Peter, I like the point that you make. AI sees the image, you see the person. Now, let's shift to periodontics because that's one of your areas of clinical expertise. We're seeing AI tools that measure bone levels, calculate risk scores, and even suggest treatment pathways. From your perspective, is AI helping us diagnose periodontal disease better, or is it still something we're just experimenting with?
Honestly, all three. And I can speak to this because my practice operates as a living laboratory for these tools. Where it clearly helps is measurement. Probing and radiographic bone-level interpretation have always been perio's Achilles heel because they're so operator-dependent. AI-assisted imaging reduces that inter-examiner variability, and consistency is a genuine clinical gain. We've also built our own tools. My hygienist and I developed a debridement difficulty index that scores case complexity and predicts treatment time, and our validation data was remarkably strong. That's decision support built by clinicians for clinicians, and that's the direction I want this field to move. We're also doing research on hyperspectral intraoral scanning for oral mucosal surveillance, which means detecting what the human eye literally cannot see. That's genuinely exciting. Where I pump the brakes is risk scores and suggested treatment pathways. That's still the experimental tier. A risk model trained on someone else's population may not describe your patient, and periodontal risk is behavioral, systemic, and plays out over decades. Current models capture only a slice of that. So my verdict, AI is helping us measure better. It is not yet helping us decide better. And measuring was always the easy part.
Oh, that's such a customized approach also to provide services to each patient. That's amazing. Now, of course, AI can only be as reliable as the information learned from that, and that raises a concern that many clinicians are already thinking about.
Yes, and of course, if AI is trained on imperfect or non-representative data sets or non-comprehensive ones, are we at risk of exaggerating or perpetuating our diagnostic blind spots?
Yes, and I go further. AI doesn't just perpetuate our blind spots. It launders them. Think about it. A human blind spot at least varies from clinician to clinician. My colleague catches what I miss. An algorithmic blind spot gets applied uniformly, confidently, and at scale to every patient, every time, with the same polished interface. So there are three specific failure modes that keep me up at night. First, demographic bias. Studies consistently show poorer AI performance in underrepresented groups. A caries detector trained mostly on one population reads other populations less accurately, and that error is systematic, not random. Second, model drift. Performance quietly degrades when your imaging hardware or your patient mix differs from the training environment, and nobody notices because the software looks just as confident on a bad day as a good one. Third, the black box problem. Vendors keep the training data, and the model weight's proprietary, so neither the clinician nor the regulator can audit what's actually inside. I've said this to regulators. Black box dentistry breeds black eye headlines, and transparency is the only anesthetic. The practical remedy? Ask your vendor about the training population, validate against your own patients, and treat every AI confidence score as a claim to be tested, not a fact to be accepted.
Now, let's talk about the human side, the part that no algorithm can replicate.
Exactly. Judgment versus code. Dentistry is full of nuance, risk tolerance, patient values, long-term planning. How do you see clinicians balancing their own judgment with AI-generated certainty?
Let me tell you about a case that changed how I teach this. There was a patient, widely covered on a tech podcast, who was nearly overtreated in a corporate practice on the strength of AI-flagged findings. And when I studied that case, I realized the core problem was never accuracy. It was abdication. The AI found something. The clinician found nothing to say. When the clinician outsources the explanation to the algorithm, even a correct diagnosis becomes a failure of care, and the data backs this up. Patient trust drops measurably when AI dominates the encounter. About 70% of patients want an explanation they can understand, and nearly 3/4 want the clinician, not the software, leading the conversation. Here's the thing about AI-generated certainty. AI is certain about images. It has nothing to say about risk tolerance, patient values, finances, dental anxiety, or the 10-year plan for a dentition. All of that lives in the conversation, and that conversation is ours. The question I teach my graduate students to ask of any AI tool is not, is it accurate? It's what trust is this system being asked to carry? Diagnostic AI can carry clinical truth, but it can't carry benevolence. So the balance is simple. Let AI narrow the search space, then apply judgment to everything the model can't see. AI proposes, but the clinician disposes.
Now, if AI points a dentist in the wrong direction, where does accountability fall? On the dentist, the software, or somewhere in between?
Accountability lands on the dentist, and it should. In Ontario, the framework is unambiguous. These are decision support tools, and the license holder holds the decision. There's a genuine, unresolved question upstream about vendor liability, but that's a fight between the dentist and the manufacturer. It never moves your duty to the patient. So how do we guard against being nudged wrong? 5 habits. 1. Never accept an AI finding you haven't independently verified against the image and the patient. 2. Document your reasoning, not just your conclusion, so the record shows both the AI's input and your independent judgment. 3. Watch for automation bias. It sets in around month 3, when the tool has been right often enough that you stop checking. That's exactly when it becomes dangerous. 4. Build deliberate friction. In my practice, we routinely read images without the AI overlay because I never want our diagnostic muscles to atrophy. And 5. Know your tool, its training population, its known failure modes, its validation studies. You wouldn't hand a scalpel to someone who doesn't understand their limits. Software is no different. The axiom I come back to: automation without accountability becomes abandonment.
Great answer, Peter. You mentioned earlier about distrust patients might have, or some patients might have in AI. How do we explain AI-generated findings or a lack of findings to patients? And how do we keep the dentist, not the software, at the center of the conversation?
2 scenarios here, and they're very different. So in the first scenario, patients are already using AI before they walk in. They've asked ChatGPT about their bleeding gums. So I published a framework for exactly this. A traffic light. Green means learn. General education, home care instructions, what is a root canal, for example, that's fine. Yellow means ask me. Symptoms, diagnosis questions, treatment options. AI can help you prepare questions, but do not act on it alone. Red means stop and call. Things like urgent symptoms, swelling, trauma. Never let a chatbot talk you out of care. And I warn every patient about one thing. AI is designed to agree with you, even when it's wrong. Second scenario, AI findings inside the operatory. Language matters enormously here. Never say the computer found a cavity. Say I found early decay here, and I used an imaging tool that helps me confirm it. The AI can corroborate your diagnosis, not issue one. Used well, the visual overlay is actually a gift. The patient can see the highlighted lesion and understand the recommendation. But when a patient says, ChatGPT told me I need treatment, the real question is not whether the chatbot is right. Patients don't need us to argue with the screen. They need us to interpret their condition.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that advice. Finally, Peter, let's look ahead. In 10 years, do you see AI becoming our co-pilot, our safety net, or our competition?
Co-pilot and safety net, never competition. And I'll use an aviation analogy because I spend time around pilots. A co-pilot handles instruments and cross-checks the captain, but the captain flies the plane and the captain signs for the passengers. In 10 years, I expect AI as a second reader on every radiograph. Predictive models flagging perio patients before breakdown, not after. Ambient scribes eliminating documentation entirely. And AI handling the operational layer so the team is fully present with the patient. Honestly, the safety net function may matter most. The ever-vigilant backstop that catches the lesion at the end of a long, tiring day. That's a real patient safety win. So, why not competition? Because dentistry's core product isn't detection, it's trust. And trust isn't downloadable. AI has data. We have experience. It can't read the room, sense a patient's hesitation, or manage the anxious patient whose real barrier is fear, not information. So here's how I'd leave it. The dentists of 2036 will not be replaced by AI, but dentists who use AI thoughtfully will define the standard of care. And our job as a profession is to lead that transition rather than have it happen to us. The final call stays with the clinician because the final responsibility never left.
Now, to our listeners, whether you are prepping for boards, navigating your first associateship, or leading a practice, remember, technology can support your judgment, but it should never replace your integrity. As we wrap up today's conversation, here is the thought I want to leave you with. AI may work faster and handle more information than we ever could, but it cannot replace the human connection that defines dentistry. It cannot sense a patient's hesitation, it cannot understand their story, and it cannot consider the ethical layers behind every treatment choice. The responsibility still belongs to us, as Peter mentioned. The future of dentistry is not AI versus dentists. It is AI alongside dentists. It is clinicians who use technology wisely, question it when needed, and base every decision on what matters most, the patient sitting in front of her. So whether you're just beginning your career or decades into practice, remember this. AI can support what we do, but it is our compassion, our curiosity, and our dedication to ethical care that gives dentistry its purpose. Sonia, do you have any message for the audience?
I just want to thank Peter for providing a bit of light to this really complex subject. And also to our listeners, whether you're preparing for boards or navigating your first associateship or leading a practice, after listening to this podcast, we hope that you'll all agree that technology can support our judgment, but it should never replace our integrity. And we invite all of you to continue following us on Instagram at ACD Ontario and subscribe on our YouTube channel at ACD Ontario and stay tuned for next month's episode.